Halfway between Australia and Hawaii, in the midst of the Pacific Ocean, 9 tiny islands, home to the 11,000 people of Tuvalu. You may never have heard of our atoll nation, but our Polynesian ancestors navigated the vast Pacific blue and settled here. These strips of land have sustained our people for over 3,000 years. But the world is on fire.
It's now too late to leave. Seek shelter as the fire approaches.
The glacier is melting. The sea is rising.
The climate time bomb is ticking.
My paradise is at the very front line and will soon be paradise lost.
Tuvalu is literally sinking. We must take action now.
A climate crisis caused by others many miles from here, and yet it's my people set to be the first to lose our entire nation to the rising waves within my lifetime.
I keep looking at their photos every single night after returning from these halls, thinking, what would I tell them upon my return from Glasgow?
To think that they'd agree on 1.5 and then do nothing about it? What are they waiting for?
We're talking in a matter of decades. That entire community and society could be wiped out from the face of the earth.
The ocean is my friend. Still is, but it is taking our lands bit by bit. It's taking our homes bit by bit. It is frightening. Right now, this current generation is questioning their future. That's the scary part, having to deal with all the adult questions at such a young age. We will start off first with a prayer. So today we are going to have a youth workshop, their personal stories with climate change and how it has impacted their lives. The fear that hangs over all of us is having no choice but to leave Tuvalu and find a new homeland somewhere else.
All right, let's get started.
I want to stay here. I don't feel like I belong anywhere else but here. And I don't want to die and have a lot of regrets that when I was strong and young, I did not fight.
The sense of belonging in a community that we share here in Tuvalu. We don't want to lose that. But I also have to look after myself, also have to look after my family, my parents, and I came into conclusion that I have to migrate.
We migrated to Australia in 2012, and as a young girl, I felt lonely. I can understand why some Tuvaluans would want to stay here and not want to migrate. It's a hard life.
I have this feeling that if I move away, I'm betraying someone. And that someone is like my mother. This land is also like my mother. It's that feeling that keeps me here. And I want to die next to my forefathers. And I want my skin to go back to the land.
Our connection to land and sea is an integral part of our culture. At only 2 meters above sea level, our lives are interwoven with the ocean.
If we do not fight, no one will listen. it will be business as usual. And the consequence of that would be devastating for Tuvalu.
The ocean is rising here 1.5 times faster than the rest of the planet. So NASA is here to tell our government what's coming next.
We'll meet up in my office shortly.
We're going to talk to them about projections of future sea level rise, helping them understand the timeline at which sea level is going to rise in the future, and then connecting that to the amount of flooding that they're going to see. So it is a very stark picture based on the science. The sea level is going up very quickly and will continue to increase. So it's important information to be able to give to them.
Welcome to Tuvalu. I think it's a milestone for Tuvalu to be able to host a visit from NASA.
Thank you for having us. Indeed, it's NASA's first landing. Just like on the moon, this is a Tuvalu first landing for the agency, so we're excited to be here.
We have a large suite of satellites that are constantly orbiting the planet, and we can tell you how fast oceans are rising, how fast they're encroaching on land. All water within the ocean is connected. If your glacier melts far away in Antarctica, Tuvalu would feel the rise of expanding oceans.
One of our key findings, we can assess how often Tuvalu will experience flooding in the future. But as you continue to increase sea level, eventually you're going to start to see flooding at almost every high tide.
To what extent how much countries are able to reduce their emissions would affect your projections and the forecast that now you are making in terms of the levels?
The target that you're talking about and keeping the emissions down in terms of future sea level rise, it really is everything.
Some of the changes are already locked in. We're going to see the increase in sea level even if we shut down all of fossil fuel today. However, going forward, that becomes extremely important.
The climate clock ticks down as the world promises to act. But no one is moving fast enough to stop the waves from coming.
Imagine that you are having a blanket over you, right? So this would be the equivalent of greenhouse gases. Now, when we put more of those molecules into the atmosphere, we put 2 blankets on. What happens when instead of 1 blanket, you have 2 blankets on? Do you get hotter or cooler? Yes, you get hotter. What happens if you get 5 blankets on? We got really sweaty, right? But there is no place for it to go.
Climate change, sea level rise, global warming,
The global view we have at NASA, I think, is really important. You add the extreme weather to the sea level rise, to the flooding, to the storms, you're really getting hit from all fronts here in Tuvalu.
Can I please see? Thank you. Okay, so I see a house. Oh. Okay, heavy rain. I see the house is being destroyed by the water. Ne? Oh, yeah? What do you have there? Let me see. Okay. Explain, please.
The house and the trees full of sea.
Okay. What happened to them?
Because the house is broken.
Oh, why?
Because you remember the storm?
Oh, okay. Oh, I see that with the lightning. Okay, so with the storm and all the big waves coming in, it destroyed the house.
Tuvalu's motto is Tuvalu with God. There's a huge dependence on our religious faith, spiritual values, that God is going to save us from this situation.
If you ask members of our Christian church about the issue of climate change, they always look at relocation. Whether we have to move or not. When I talk to my elders, they say, "Don't worry, God will save us."
Christianity believes that after Noah's time, there won't be any other floods. Like that was the last one. I don't want to wrong my elders' thoughts about climate change, but I'm a science student and I do know that climate change is real and this is what's going to happen.
I think God is also instructing us not to sit around to save ourselves.
But another flood is coming, and we may need a new ark. Not 2 by 2, but moving an entire nation. It's never been done before, yet this is now the future my government needs to negotiate.
It's the day where things will very much start to bring the countries together in order to acknowledge, the existential threat faced by Pacific atoll island countries. My name is Kamala Makran, and I am the Managing Director of the UN Global Center for Climate Mobility. Greetings to everyone. Welcome to the launch of the Rising Nation Initiative. The purpose of the Rising Nation Initiative is first and most to preserve the sovereignty, statehood, dignity and rights of the people of Tuvalu.
The existential threat we face is not our making, but it will remake us.
As our government and the Rising Nations team together take our battle into the corridors of power, it seems I have no choice but to fly across the globe and join the fight. We are out here fighting for a voice. People back home think, oh, you're going to Europe, you're gonna see the things that we've only seen on movies.
The Eiffel Tower is right there.
But it's a burden. It's definitely a burden. How many more stories do you want to listen to in order to take action? But we must keep holding the world to account, because reminders of our fragility are never far away. Oh no. There's been an earthquake near New Caledonia, and people across the Pacific have been issued a warning to avoid coastal areas in case the tsunamis reach their shores. Yeah, and that includes Tuvalu.
Imagine a tsunami can hit. You wake up in the morning without Tuvalu. So that is the reality, and that is what is driving us to really get up and come to UNESCO.
Great pleasure to meet you.
Indeed, a pleasure to meet you too.
Great pleasure. We're very happy to have you here.
We are no more than 2 meters above sea level. So when we speak of impact of climate change, we are actually speaking from experience. We are living with the impacts of climate change and living with uncertainty and fear on a daily basis.
Now it's the work.
A lot to work, but also to work quickly.
I know, there is urgency.
Yes.
So she's the special...
We need to work together so that culture is protected and protect the life of the people. And if we don't act quickly, then the effect would even be worse.
People really tend to act when something is really affecting themselves, but we don't have time on our side.
30 centimeters of sea level rise and it's gone.
The Rising Nations team is here to work with us in writing the first blueprint on how to preserve and rehome an entire nation. Not just for Tuvalu, but a guidebook for a world on the move in this climate-altered century.
Our goal is to have Tuvalu being designated as the first Universal World Heritage country.
I'm here on Tuvalu really scoping the potential for this aspiration for a World Heritage application.
Heritage and culture is at the core of identity, and people without identity are lost souls.
You have a saying here in Tuvalu that everything is woven. Our lives are woven into nature.
When I was born, my umbilical cord was cut in two.
Yep.
One is buried on land,
Yeah.
on my land,
Yeah.
and my mum planted a coconut tree on it.
Oh yeah.
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 And then the other half of my umbilical cord, my dad took it all the way out to the ocean and just throw it in the ocean.
Yeah.
It will float anywhere, but guess what? You will always come to your
back.
other half, and you will join again.
But these traditional ways of life are fast being eroded. Me now as a 24-year-old, we can't plant anything on the ground. We have to plant using food cubes or above. When I go out to the sea, there's soil erosion. Places that I used to play as a child are no longer there. But you, Pa, how's life for you then?
That's really a big change. Before, full of beautiful corals like flowers.
Underwater flowers.
Yes. What worries me most is when we're going to submerge. I'm really afraid of that. I don't know who is going to survive. We don't know what's going to happen when we sleep. I don't want to leave my beautiful Tuvalu. I am.
Tuvalu will become uninhabitable long before it goes under. So, there are now difficult conversations to be had about how we stay as one nation, one culture, one people, even as Tuvalu is torn apart.
We brought together the elders from the various islands across the country to hear about their aspiration and their ambition as they face another test.
We were just voicing out and identify some of our traditional cultures that are really, disappearing. That comes with a big question. Can we turn the table to preserve that as we have known before?
If the science is right, it may simply be too late. So where else would Tuvaluans feel able to call home?
There was the idea of how to buy land, facilitating a little Tuvalu, where Tuvaluans will be together. Have you thought of the United States, the Polynesian side of the United States, Hawaii?
The USA just scares me as a country to live in. Australia is not a very accepting society for people like me. New Zealanders are by nature most kind to Pacific Islanders. New Zealand would be my choice if it comes to choosing a country. But I went to New Zealand in 1965. I always felt that I was a walking museum exhibit. There were times when I considered giving up because it was a difficult life. But this many years later, I'm glad I didn't.
And we cannot give up the fight now either. Australia has just promised climate visas for some, and now the world's superpower is here to lend its support.
You have the most important voice of conscience because of the challenge to your homelands. And I hope we will find a way to raise that voice.
If the world allowed an entire country like Tuvalu to disappear from climate change, there would be no hope for anyone else.
We need to turn this around, and this has to be the time we do it.
Tuvalu has been our sanctuary for generations, a sanctuary that the world is now washing away. They cannot expect our people to be dispersed or moved to a wasteland. Imagine you and your family having to move, having to lose their identity, their culture, everything that they hold dear to heart. Imagine losing all that. That is my future today, and that may be your future tomorrow. 1.2 billion people are said to be displaced by climate change in the coming decades. This is the story of our century. How the world responds will shape all of our futures.